Welcome to the Behind the Book web series, live from the Mirage Sportsbook, or perhaps you're watching us on the Mirage Facebook page. I'm Gil Alexander, host of the Beating the Book podcast, alongside the man, VP, MGM Resorts Racing Sportsbook, the great Jay Rude. Hello.
How are you?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, yeah. After week one in the NFL, can't complain.
How did it go? Before we get into what we do here week to week, and we'll mention what that is momentarily, how did the books fare? How did your books fare, the 10 that you oversee here on the Strip? Week one in the NFL, and then week two in college football.
Yeah, we did well in the NFL. You know, we had kind of a wacky start to it. You know, there were some games that got out to a weird start, and then they finished up kind of like what we thought they would. But overall, really good week for MGM Resorts Racing Sportsbooks.
Very nice. Very nice for you. Let's see if we can't help bettors get the best of you in week two in the NFL.
Yeah,
and
again, why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive, but we're going to try to coax something out of you.
All right.
Now, for those just tuning in for the first time on the Mirage Facebook page, what we do here is go through 3 marquee college football games, 3 NFL games, and then we will have Jay answer one of your submitted questions on social media, perhaps on the Mirage Facebook page itself. Ready to do this?
Let's go.
All right. Historical weekend in college football. Not sure if you know about this. Since the AP poll was instituted back in 1934, we have never had one day in which the number 1, 2, and 3 teams in college football have all been on the road against ranked teams at the same time. Never happened.
Right.
We have that this week. Let's do them in chronological order. Number 2 FSU is at Louisville. FSU a 2-point favorite right now as we do this midweek. FSU considered by the average bettor as sort of a perennial power. Louisville, not at all. And you have a sort of Heisman candidate mano-a-mano between DeAndre Francois from FSU and a kid who has really changed the Heisman discussion in just the first 2 weeks of the season. Amazing performances from Lamar Jackson, the quarterback at Louisville. How are bettors going to approach this with a perennial power against the upstart Louisville Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, with Jackson, getting a lot of attention right now in the Heisman wagering pool as well. So we've taken him all the way down from 20 to 1 last week. Now he's down to 10 to 1.
Wow.
Going to 8 to 1 more than likely. A little bit. He's going to be in the single digits, and there's only 3 or 4 guys that are in the single digits right now. So a lot of attention to their offense. And I think the bettors, they like to bet offense, and that's what the average bettor looks to do. And with the absence of James, defensive back for FSU, that could only maybe enhance that a little bit more. Everyone's going to see that maybe, the defensive back for FSU being out might be a game changer for them, but realistically, the SEC and the rest of football have big philosophy differences. SEC always makes their best player go play defense. And the rest of the world, they make their best players go play offense, and you couldn't have a more exact, perfect storm of that philosophy right here.
Do you expect the money to come on either side as we approach game time?
I believe, with the big comeback by FSU and it being a popular public team, I believe we're going to be needing Louisville, and I'm going to need Jackson to throw a few TDs in this touchdown in this game for us to have a shot to cover this game.
FSU through 2 weeks of the college football season, 6th worst in FBS in terms of giving up plays of 10 yards or more, but Louisville -3 in turnovers up to date. FSU +6. If Louisville's going to win this, they're going to have to do something about that. Second game among the top 3 ranked teams as we go through Saturday. Number 1 Alabama at Ole Miss, the 19th ranked Rebels of Ole Miss. I could search for negative things to say about Alabama, but I would just be making something up. Alabama has looked strong through 2 weeks. I guess the only thing I can come up with here, Jay, is Alabama is posted right now as a 10.5-point favorite at Oxford, is that freshman quarterback for Alabama, Jalen Hurts, has never gone to an opposing SEC school and had to face that kind of environment. Are bettors locked into that kind of thing, or is Alabama so public that if they're thinking Alabama now, they ought to get their money in quick?
I think if they're thinking Alabama, this number is going to go up. So you're going to want to bet early in the week. It's a big game for a kid on the road in the SEC. But I think the reason Hurt is going to start is because I think Saban is really worried about getting off to a slow start.
Yeah.
Having lost to the Rebels the last 2 years, Saban is very, very mindful that he needs to get off to a quick start against a good quarterback on the Rebel side. So I think you're going to see this number run on the Alabama side just because they've looked so good. Like you said, it's hard to find fault with them anywhere.
Sure is.
So the betting public is always going to line up with the favorite that looks good and has looked good, and traditionally has always looked good, and that's Bama.
They love Alabama. Well, Ole Miss, as Jay mentioned, trying to win their third straight against Nick Saban and Alabama. That would be unbelievable. We'll see if that happens.
And Bama doesn't get many circle games because they're the ones that people circle on them. But now they have this circle because they've lost 2 straight.
Ohio State travels at night now, or at least the third of these 3 games, to Norman, Oklahoma, take on the 14th ranked Sooners of Oklahoma. Ohio State 2-point favorites at Norman. Ohio State's defense has been spectacular. 9 takeaways through 2 weeks, and you would think that that speed and athleticism would match up great against Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield and that offense. And you would think conversely, Oklahoma's going to try to grind it out against Oklahoma with Samaje Perine and company and do that. The only thing that I can think of that overrides all of that, though, is on the other side of the ball where Oklahoma had trouble against Houston's Greg Ward Jr. How are they going to contend with J.T. Barrett at Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things to take away from this. I think right now, based on the way Oklahoma has been bet in the first couple of games, and especially after losing the first game to Houston, I think the public kind of has a view that they're sort of damaged goods right now, which could lead them down the wrong path, that's for sure, with this Oklahoma team. The other game, Ohio State, they had basically a washout last week, no pun intended. Yeah. But they did get off to a little bit of a slow start, and Tulsa gave them a little bit of problem in the beginning. If they stutter like that a little bit, Oklahoma is going to be a team that might have a little for them in the beginning to counteract that, because they're going to want to get out to a quick start. They've already got a loss under their belt. They can't afford to have any mishaps. So I think the bettors will be on Ohio State because Urban Meyer is the absolute darling of players. He's almost like always bet Belichick. I mean, you almost always bet Urban. So I think the public is going to line up on them as a road favorite. But it's going to be a great game. In Oklahoma, it's 2 top quality teams coming in, really well coached. And I think it's going to give the players a little bit of pause of concern on the Ohio State side that it is in Norman. But I think if it was at a neutral field, they would be behind Ohio State all the way.
Of those 3 top-ranked teams, in the morning, FSU, followed by Alabama, followed by Ohio State. Which of those 3 do you anticipate the most handle on of those games?
Probably the Oklahoma-Ohio State game.
The late one.
Yeah, the morning games are a little bit tougher because obviously here in Vegas, people come in Friday night. Yeah. Maybe they don't get here till Saturday morning. So the really early morning games, even though I think that could possibly be the most entertaining game, the FSU-Louisville game to watch.
Sure, could be.
I'm going to be glued to that one in my office, watching that in the morning. But I think the higher handle game will become the Ohio State game in the afternoon, which all the parlays will start to roll in that. My liability will be rolling
Maybe people will be chasing.
I'll be in a good sweat by that time.
Let's go to Sunday in the NFL, week 2 in the NFL. Start out with the Cowboys and Redskins. Redskins 3-point favorites against the Cowboys. Cowboys 1-point loss to the Giants last week, but their rookie quarterback Dak Prescott looked very good, looked very poised. They should be set in the future. Cowboys fans have to feel kind of good even with that loss. The Redskins, on the other hand, Jay, an abject disaster Monday night against the Steelers. So many things wrong. Were this the 70s and 80s, this might have been your biggest handle game of the weekend, I would imagine. Do bettors even view this game in any way different than any other game on the NFL slate at this point?
I mean, the fact that these 2 teams sort of have fallen off the relative, high chart of importance in the NFL, as of late, it has taken a backseat to what it used to be back in the 70s. Dak and the boys, they had a heartbreak in that game. Like you said, Dak played really well. We got sided on that game, which is never a good thing. Went from pick to Giants 1.5,
right,
or 1, and so that wasn't a great game for us. We hope that they can come back and put on a little bit better performance. I think this is a game where everyone has hope, and this is a game that has a high total. And I think a lot of people are going to hope that the Redskins look like they did last year. I think they're going to hope that the Dallas Cowboys turn field goals into touchdowns, and I think they're going to bet the over in this game. I think that's going to be our biggest decision on this game, is we're going to need this game to stay under, because a lot of people are going to hope that these 2 teams return to form, and one looks like he might break into form.
Interesting. And the total on that game, as we look up on the board right now, 45 as we do this video right now. Let me ask you about another game as we do this. Buccaneers at Cardinals. Cardinals 7 points, reduced juice, even right now. A week ago, you and I talked about the Patriots and the Cardinals. And at that time, this was before we knew about Rob Gronkowski not going to play in that game. So at the time, the spread in that game was essentially the exact same as it is now for this game.
Right.
And that was against Bill Belichick. Here the Cardinals are at home. They're against Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers. Now, Jameis Winston and the Bucs looked good against the Falcons last week. But isn't this the quintessential example of the effect of recency in NFL markets? The fact that 1 week later, it's almost the exact same spread for the Cardinals against the Buccaneers based on 1 week, the ultimate small sample size in what we've seen.
Right, and that game ran to 9.5. I mean, they opened up 7, ran to 9.5. The only wagering we got back on the Patriots was right before game time. It dropped back down to 8.5. So, and the spread was never a factor in that game at all. So, you're exactly right. I mean, the Buccaneers is not a public team. Arizona is slowly, the last year or so, become sort of a public team because they put up big offensive numbers. But Carson Palmer didn't look like the Carson Palmer that we've expected him to look like the last year or so with the Cardinals last week. So we'll see. And Jameis Winston is, I think, a guy that the public doesn't tend to embrace yet. He might roll into that coming along, but he still doesn't. He's not one of those quarterbacks that the public is going to embrace. Yeah. So I think the public here is obviously going to line up again on hope that the Cardinals return to form. So I think we're going to need the Buccaneers with a really nice price for us to have to have in our back pocket to see the Cardinals have to cover. So we're going to really be hoping that the Bucs do well, because I think the public is going to be all over the Cardinals in this game.
7 is obviously a key number in the NFL. Do you think it pushes through the 7, or do you think it settles there?
I think right now, obviously, the Sharps have shown that they like the 7.
Yeah.
That's why we moved the VIG down. But instead of jumping down to 6.5 and let the public right now for the next 3 or 4 days lay 6.5, we moved the VIG a little bit and said, if you want to take the 7 again, I'm going to charge you double VIG. And that seemed to have stopped it for right now, because I don't want to open up a middle on the 7. So I think it will go swing the other way.
The mind of the bookmaker. Final game that I want to talk about on Sunday in the NFL is the Sunday night game, Jay, between the Packers and the Vikings. Packers, 2.5-point favorites on the road against their NFC North division rivals. Packers beat the Jaguars last week, but didn't cover. Jaguars actually had a chance to win it in the end, which is kind of consistent with the Packers. As much as the public loves the Packers, as much as they're a big-time team with Aaron Rodgers, last year on the road, they were outgained 58 yards per game all season on the road. In fact, only outgained their opponent twice, I believe, last year. One was against the Niners. Not sure if that even counts. So here they are on the road against the Vikings team that got by the Titans, but did so because of 2 defensive touchdowns.
Absolutely.
Titans said, we're going to stop Adrian Peterson. They did. Let Shaun Hill beat us. Shaun Hill didn't. It just so happened the defense did.
Right.
But only 2.5. Let me ask you this, because people always want to know about a 2.5-point spread on the road, and Packers especially being the public team. It begs for Packers money, doesn't it? Isn't that how the average bettor thinks of this?
Yeah, they think it's a trap game.
Yeah.
And we opened up 3.
The mythical trap game.
Yeah, so we opened 3. The Sharps took the 3, obviously. If Teddy's in this game, this is a pick 'em. So Teddy's not in this game. So basically you need Shaun Hill or Sam Bradford. If he plays anywhere 80% of what Teddy would have maybe put up, now this game should be maybe 1. So they're taking value. They're getting 1.5 or 2 points value here. So I think the Sharps are going to be all over the Vikings on this game.
Interesting.
As soon as we touch 3, they're going to look to take the 3 unless we move the VIG. And I do think that the Vikings, though, the public, with the quarterback problem and that they only got by with 2 defensive touchdowns, they're going to be looking to back the Packers on the road, even though it's the second road game of the year to open the season, and they have road woes. The Packers is a team that can't be denied the public.
Real quick, is there anything ever that is actually a trap game, or is that just a myth?
There's trap games.
Okay.
There's sandwich games. There's all kinds of games.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, from the bookmaker's perspective to the bettor, there's no traps.
No, we're not setting a trap, but
it
can be illogical to the average person.
For sure. All right, ready to field your first ever question from social media?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
I hope it's good, Jay. Charles Child submits this on our Mirage Facebook page. He asks, Jay, why does the book charge 11 to 10 on straight wagers?
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, we're your typical business. I mean, we actually hold a much lower hold than your average grocery store does. 11 to 10 is how we make our VIG. So if you bet 11 on one side, say you take the Packers and you lay 11, and then I get another bet on the Vikings and they bet 11. I, in essence, am facilitating that wager for the 2 customers. One will win, the other will lose. I'll take the $10 and pay this guy, and I'll hold that dollar as a commission for facilitating that service for him. And that's basically how a book operates. We theoretically operate on a 4.5% hold, but that never comes into effect. We always have a gamble, and one side is bigger than the other.
In theory, it would be
theory.
equal money on each side, and that's how the book would make its
Right.
money.
In math class, that's the way it's supposed
That's
to work.
right. That's what we do each and every week. 3 college football games, 3 pro football games. Try to get unique insights from behind the book.
Hopefully.
So a basic question this week, Jay. Perhaps they'll get more complex as the season moves on.
I believe so, yeah. They'll probably get a little bit trickier to answer.
Okay, we look forward to that. Again, you can submit all your questions on the Mirage Facebook page or throughout all social media just by asking the question and putting down the hashtag Behind the Book. We'd love to hear from you each and every week. For the Behind the Book web series, live from the Mirage Sportsbook, and thank you once again to everybody here at the Mirage. We appreciate it. Also to Jay Rude, I'm Gil Alexander. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with all your bets this weekend.